Hi, my name is Mr. Chao, and welcome to Chao Time. In this week's episode, I'm going to be reviewing this watch, the Panerai Luminor GMT in blue. I'll be honest, coming into the review, I had a lot of preconceptions and personal biases, and after having the watch for about a week now, I'm happy to report that I'm very pleasantly surprised. This watch is on loan to me from my friends at Daming Watches in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. So big shout out to them for helping out this nascent and developing channel. If you're in the area and you'd like to check them out, please check the description for their contact information. How I review watches is by scoring them against an ever-evolving rubric that I'm developing. I take that score and I apply a value score. You can check out the rubric in the description below as well. If you're interested in how the process works, you can check the video in the top right hand corner. And after all that, I give my completely subjective opinion. And I base that on my experiences, my emotions, how I'm feeling that day, because that's how I make my watch buying decisions. So, let's get to it. Before we can begin scoring the watch against the rubric, we first need to understand what the purpose of the watch is, why it exists, and what design language inspires it. Well, the watch has a deep military heritage and is currently a luxury tool watch that is meant to be legible underwater. This will help me frame the review and give the review context. We'll start with the function, feel, and visual appeal of the case and bracelet. The case is made of stainless steel, 316L, which is the modern bare minimum for corrosion resistance and durability. This bare minimum specification keeps the watch from moving too high on the rubric. There are a variety of high quality finishes on the case though, with the exception of this space here between the lugs. This omission is puzzling for a watch of this price and stature. There is a double dome sapphire crystal, which does not distort the dial even at the most extreme angles, but it does not have anti-reflective coating. The crown is large in diameter, but could be a ½ millimeter wider toward the case to make it easier to grip. This blue crocodile strap is well made and color matching with the dial. There is no bracelet option though, which makes me wonder what the life expectancy of the strap is. If I were to daily wear it, and sweat and wash my hands and possibly take the occasional dip into the pool or ocean, will this strap last more than a few years? This also kept the watch from achieving a higher score. The metal buckle is bold and signed Panerai. Some highlights for the case are the original design, with the same basic form dating back to 1936. It has a very clean and tool-like aesthetic. Only the bezel is polished, and there are simply no logos or branding adorning the case. The watch seems to have a soft touch finish to it, being comfortable to hold, and it feels amazing on the wrist. When I scoured the various internet forums, there seemed to be no repeated complaints about the case and strap. 9 out of 10 for form, 7 out of 10 for function. Moving on to the dial. The first thing I noticed about Panerai dials is the sandwich construction. The loom is set into cutouts, which are pretty high quality. Under macro inspection, there are no noticeable imperfections or blemishes. The loom underneath is flat and evenly applied. One aspect of the watch that is perplexing is the relative weakness of the loom. It's not bright or terribly long-lasting. The watch is meant to be legible underwater, originally for the Italian military. One decision they made is for the GMT hand to be a 12-hour hand instead of 24-hour, as is the norm. So essentially, you have two hands that move at the same rate. This makes sense if you don't want to make 24-hour markings, because you can just use the regular hour markers and remember if the other time zone is more than 12 hours different. It doesn't require much mental gymnastics, but hurts the functionality of the watch. On the other hand, it increases legibility and simplicity, which contributes to a different type of functionality. I fear that the dial design, though, doesn't feel very cohesive with the rest of the watch. 8 out of 10 for both form and function. The movement behind the large and generously visible exhibition caseback is the Panerai caliber P9011. It's an in-house caliber that beats at 28,800 beats per hour. It has several complications: a second hour hand for a different time zone, date, and on the back, a power reserve. Speaking of the power reserve, it's a 72-hour power reserve. When you pull the crown out to its third and final position, the second hand not only hacks, but also resets to 12 o'clock. This aids the user in setting an exact time, but also would help soldiers synchronize times. However, without minute markers, I don't think it would be the best tool for the job. The movement is relatively new, so it's an unproven design. However, a search on Google and a few key forums yielded no complaints or persistent quality control issues. Most visible surfaces are devoid of fancy or eye-catching finishing, but upon closer inspection, you can see some components that have perlage or anglage, which is just a fancy term for beveling. Some receive sunray finish, while others have circular graining. It's good to see Panerai take time to finish these components. The balance wheel is made of glycidur, which is an alloy that is corrosion resistant, anti-magnetic, and resistant to thermal expansion. 8 out of 10 for form, 6.5 out of 10 for function. So far, the subjective categories have scored a 46.5 out of 60. Let's explore the lone subjective category, heritage and prestige. The brand started in 1860, and eventually, in the 1900s, became a military instrument and tool manufacturer. They worked with Rolex in manufacturing parts for their oyster cases in the 20s, and then in the 30s came out with a dive watch for the Italian military. By the 1950s, they were also contracted by the Egyptian military. All the way down the line in 1993, they decided to make watches for sale to civilians. Then, in the mid-90s, the watch brand started gaining traction with watch enthusiasts. But popularity has waned in the 2010s. However, internationally, Panerai is still well respected. 7 out of 10 in history and prestige, giving the watch a total score of 53.5 out of 70. This watch was released in 2019 and is currently in production. It retails for around $8,800 USD, but can be picked up on the gray market for closer to $8,000 to $8,200. All of this is to say that the watch will run you over $5,000, which means that the value multiplier has bottomed out at 1, and the value score is 53.5 out of 70. So, that brings me to my personal opinion on this piece. When I first saw the watch in ADs, I wouldn't even ask to put it on. It just looked big and ugly. I didn't really have any attraction to it at all. But after wearing one for a few days and learning more about the history, I have a newfound respect. Especially because they didn't even make watches for sale to the general public until 1993. That's 133 years of toolmaking, expertise, and history. The watch is certainly big and chunky, and I hate that it doesn't have a bracelet. I like to buy watches with bracelets, and then buy the strap options later on. The strap is really nice, it's just not my thing. The watch is 44 millimeters across, 16 millimeters tall, and 53 millimeters lug to lug, which is just a little too big for me as well. I don't like the 12-hour GMT hand, or the short-lasting loom. However, it is surprisingly comfortable on the wrist and feels like a tank. I did end up liking this crown closing mechanism, and I like the way that the watch feels when you bend the wrist back instead of having the crown poke into your wrist there. And I wear my watches just a little bit past this bone here, but still, when I put my hand up, I like that little crown guard there. I didn't think I was gonna like that. To me, this watch is like wearing a modern interpretation of a historical design. It doesn't speak to me though. I don't really feel any connection to the culture or history of this piece, and I don't think I'll be adding it to my collection anytime soon. So, do you agree with my scoring? Is there anything about the rubric that you would like to see changed? Are there any reviews that you'd like to see me do, or any other content that you'd like to see me create? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye, y'all.